Welcome to Threads of Enlightenment. As usual, it is my custom to welcome our guests because I know they're coming with a couple of things I deem very expensive, and that is their time. I had to learn how to honor and respect time. I misused her for many years, and it showed much in my life. But I watch folks to see how they treat time. Do they love her? Do they honor her? And it tells much about the individual. The other is the journey. The journey is a creator. It created the individual that is before us. And so I want to stop for a minute and honor her. And just wanted to say thank you for coming and spending such precious commodity here with us at Threads of Enlightenment. Thank you for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Thank you for having me. I am honored to be here. And one thing that I love to say when I meet a new community, I want to start by greeting using my native language. And in my native language, when we greet each other, we say dumelang, lokai. And in direct translation, dumelang like agree.
Yeah.
Lokai is where are you, kind of like locate yourself, So today, that is also the question that I would like to ask everyone. Do you agree to receive whatever threads of enlightenment that will come through in this threads of enlightenment, right? And where are you when you're listening this? Are you fully present or part of you is somewhere else? So that is my greetings, and I'm honored to be here.
Well, thank you so much. I put it in a different way, but I love yours. I tell people that we are to learn to transition from a listener to a hearer become present. That hearer is focused on the words because the words carry energy. So then in effect, when you are hearing, you are receiving power that is capable of changing your life. One of the customs that we have here is we ask the individual, how do you serve mankind? But currently, how do you serve mankind? First, introduce yourself to them and then tell them how do you serve.
Okay. Gao Motsemme is my name. I come from Botswana in Southern Africa. That's where I grew up. I reside in Germany. I've been in Germany for 10 years, and I'll share the journey that brought me here and even to be on this show. How do I serve? I love that question. I love that question because there was a point when when we grow up with the whole thing of love, be nice and all that. And at some point I realized being of service is being present. And when you ask me, how do I serve? What is coming through for me is a new way of being, a new way of being that is being present in every moment. Because if I have concluded in my mind, like, this is how I serve, I'm going to miss the assignment in every moment, because in every moment there is a different assignment. The question is, am I present enough to know what is being asked of me? So I serve by just sharing the new way of being in every situation, because I may be here with you and I'll give you what you need and you'll give me what I need. And when I meet the next person, they may not need love. They may need something else, like, okay, wake up and realize that you are the creator. The other person may need hope. So a new way of being is how I serve humanity.
It's a powerful imagery. And being present is the key to this whole thing. So one of the customs that we have here at Threads is we like to visit spaces that we go through life that we call first space that we do reside for a few years is called family. After the hospital, they bring us home into the family, and we're there for, who knows, be about several years, 10, 12, 14 years, 16 years, however it is. And some people leave according, but we're there for that moment. And we are residing with some strangers that we call family, mom and dad, brothers and sisters. And just like any other one, just because they're family, we're still strain from each other. We have to learn of each other. So what was your family unit like?
I actually love that. I love that you're saying we're residing with strangers, and we don't often associate family as strangers, but we are strange to each other. So I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah, we are strange to each other, and we get to learn each other. My upbringing, I grew up with my mom and my dad and my siblings, but not in one place because my parents were. I was actually born when my mom was 40 and my father was 60. So my older siblings were grown and they had their own place. And my parents were also farmers. So
Yeah.
they were mostly gone. I was with my elder sisters most of the time. So I saw my parents now and then, but my mom was not really that far because by the way she was, I could go there every weekend. My father was more in the farms, like where there's cattle and all that. So there is
Yeah.
no transport to go there. He was not really that much present. And I would say I was one of the odd child. My mom kept on saying this, like, you are not like my other children. That's kind of like how I knew myself to be. I'm not like other children.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like something that I fought in the sense of wanting acceptance. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
even if I'm different, but I get to be accepted. So I felt that I was not accepted.
Yeah.
I would say that's like the foundation, the layer. And
Yeah.
also, as I say, we all have a family, we all have our own kind of dysfunction, and my family has its own kind of dysfunction. And it's quite interesting because I got to know some of the stuff as I was doing the work. But as a child, when a lot is happening, we have a sense of just shutting off all those experiences for us to survive. So what I
Mhm.
know as a child is I had a lot of grief that I couldn't explain. Even the wonder about life, I just kind of felt like something is missing even from childhood. I felt alone, even though I was in a family of my mother, my father, and I had 8 siblings, and they had their children. There were a lot of people around, but I
Yeah.
felt as an outsider. My growing up, I felt like I had to fight to say, hey, it's okay for me to be me. That is the argument that I had a lot with my mom. And one of the moments where kind of like I broke that wall a bit was when she said that again. And my response, just from the cheeky child that I was, and I said, how is my name?
Yeah.
So I have to be different. Otherwise, I would be called maybe the same name with those people or something. But the reason why everyone has a name and I have my own name is because it's me. I'm different. And she just laughed, but the laughter of I don't know what I'm gonna do with this child.
Yeah.
That is summing up basically my childhood. Yeah, and there was that dysfunction that I can't say I remember. Um, but there was my father was alcoholic. And also just a traditional African family where
Yeah.
men they do what they do. So there was that wounding that I saw that was also not spoken about. So that was
Yeah.
like the family that I knew, but at the same time, it's a nice family. It's kind of like we know what we know, but we're not
Mhm.
gonna talk about what is here. We're gonna be nice into the outside world
Yeah.
and even to ourselves, which I feel like it's lying to ourselves as well. But then with
Yeah.
me, uh, of the later gift that I got to know about later, I was an angry child. So
Yeah.
there was that anger that would just come through, and so I was just called the crazy one. Yeah.
There's always some incidents or several incidents. It's usually not one. Some of them are benign, whereas a mom or dad, the child wants to get their attention, and the mom and dad could be busy, and they say something like, "No, not right now," and the child perceive that as rejection. And then there are also, and to that child, rejection is traumatizing to them because they have just perceived that mom and dad don't want to spend time with them or don't want to be with them. And then they take that and that begins to, that seed grows. And so we're always having seeds being planted in us that give birth to thoughts and belief systems and so forth, and then becomes our practice as we walk around daily. So here's this girl, young girl, as you said, in the mix of all of this traditional family, yet some usage and misuse of alcohol and all these different things that are there. And she becomes angry. As she now begins to move through her life, how did that anger that was residing within this young girl began to manifest? How did it show up?
First thing, as a girl child, being angry is not acceptable. It's not a girl-like, woman-like, and all that. So there is this, I would say, projection with me, just the way I am, and this is also part of my work. I didn't know until I knew, right?
Yeah,
So I have this energy that I just have, which from a child it was also interpreted as like the words that were said is kind of like, this one is not going to complete her studies. Like I'm gonna somehow fall pregnant or something. Like
yeah,
what are we gonna? Yeah, those kind of thing. So it made me doubt who I am.
yeah,
And as I went out into the world, there was a part of me that felt like who I am is wrong. And there was this energy of wanting my mom to accept me. It's also they looking for approval, for validation outside of me. It's
yeah,
what I did. So I didn't know how to say no. When you want to say no, you say yes. When you want to say yes, you say no. And then at the end, things happen and you get angry again. But at the same time, there is fear that I'm going to have outbursts outside. So there's a lot that I held in, a lot of, I would say, crazy choices that I made just because I wanted to belong somewhere. So it led me to even friendships where I was still, I was not wanted, but I wanted to fit in. I was not
yeah,
okay with any rejection. I looked for relationships even where I would be accepted. Because I remember one of the relationships that I shouldn't have been in that relationship. But it was the moment where, like, that teenage thing, and I started smoking. And I met this guy, he was smoking, his family was okay with the smoking, the mother was smoking. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm accepted here.
yeah,
So it was still looking for acceptance, making choices from that. And this is the guy that I had 2 children with. You
yeah,
understand? So it's the wound that led me to make certain choices and all that. And even when it comes to valuing myself, my truth and all that, there was a lot of question marks. And even when I look at one of my, I would say the best high-end corporate job that I had, the relationship that I had with my boss was still that mother energy playing out with my boss, because it was still the
yeah,
same thing happening at work. So it leads to making choices from still looking for approval, and making decision as well from the same thing. It's kind of like you are making the decision from the wound, not from
yes,
exactly what you want. You deny
yes,
your truth because it has been denied while you're still young. So that's how I
yes.
operated.
Yeah, most of us, I think the first 20 something years of our lives and stuff like that. For me, it was a little longer than that because I didn't blossom as far as starting seeking and learning who I was until in my 30s and so forth. But I think the first half of our life, if you will, then we live and make decisions from the trauma. The trauma is what guides us. It causes us, as in your case, where people pleaser, I became one as well. And from that vantage point that one looks at as a people pleaser, you're trying to survive. You're trying to make sure that you are accepted and all of those things. But that decision was made from your trauma. And so you are not, and because of it's a decision made from pain, usually the result is always painful. And so until you start making healthy decisions, so that trauma will guide you and become in some fashion a taskmaster for the first part of your life. And so it's okay. We all get beat up because of that choices. But
Yeah.
here you are, this girl has made these choices. And that's common. You have your children and you're going through life. And as you're seeing this thread in your life, with your mother, constantly walking with you. You're there in it at your employer and so forth. How did that begin to affect you, knowing, seeing it in the sense where you, here's my mother again kind of thing, or the energy of my mother? What did it do to you as a young woman? Because it, you don't have control at that point in time, but it does things to
Yeah.
you. What was it doing to you as a young woman?
Lots of doubt, feeling unworthy,
Yeah.
because I've always had this energy of going after what I want. And I knew that I'm here to be something big, but I didn't know what it was. I had this ambition within me. And this is what guided me. So I never stopped going towards what I want. But here's the
Yeah.
thing. The moment I get it, the whole voice come through. Who do you think you are? Oh my God, they want to
Yeah.
find you that you are not who you claim to be. So there was always this voice. And I still remember like one thing that kept on happening. I would be in a meeting actually. That's one of the things. And some things are being said. In my mind, I'm trying to be ahead. I was never present. I was trying to be ahead. In case
Yeah.
I'm being asked something, I have to know what that is. But I'm missing what is here. And if I get to be asked something, I've missed what is here. If I'm having conversations with people, I, I'm trying to say something that will be maybe accepted, like, wow, but
Yeah.
then afterwards, I'll be alone and I'm like, why did I say that? I'm going through the conversation, repeating it and feeling like, oh my God, you're so stupid. You shouldn't have, why don't you just keep quiet and all that? I was the kind of person who, as much as I had this, because who we are cannot be taken away, I had this presence all the time, but I prefer to sit in a corner. When I get into a room, I'll sit in a corner and watch what is happening. And maybe I'll find one person to have a conversation with, but I never felt that I was enough. I never
Yeah.
felt that I was enough. And one other thing that I also didn't mention just in the beginning, growing up, these gifts that I have were always there. So when there is a lot of dysfunction, there's a lot of things that you get to see, but you are seeing them from the shadow. You understand?
Yeah.
So that also created its own layer of fear of the paranormal that you can also explain, because when you talk about this thing, it's kind of like you are weird. At times I would have things happen even in my dreams. And then maybe I talk to someone or I don't, and someone come and tell me that, oh, this thing happened, or maybe I lost something, or someone broke in. I'm like, I saw that, or an accident happened. I'm like, yeah, that happened before. It's kind of like, you're weird. Now they're not feeling they're feeling unworthy, not being accepted. This weirdness that I can also explain, which also had me questioning life. Even there was a point when I was really angry, even with the whole God, and asking, but why are you showing me things if I can't stop them from happening? And what's the point of that again, if it causes that, weirdness where you're afraid of connecting at a deeper level because you're afraid of knowing things that you won't do anything about, because I didn't know what it meant, So
Yeah.
it led to one of the things that I also kind of like survived with, where like weekend going out and drinking and all that, it was kind of like numbing myself from knowing whatever, like, yeah.
Yeah.
But there were times at the same time where when I don't either dream or something like that, I'll be like, I have to take a weekend and just be home and see, because I've lost connection. I felt like when I lose my dreams, I'm losing something.
Yeah.
That was like my life. It was like a crazy world of mine I didn't even understand myself. And that's the thing, I didn't
Yeah.
understand a lot of things. And at the same time, I didn't feel like I belonged. And there was also a lot of grief, sadness. I had a lot of that, where even when I look at people, I feel like people are lost, but at the same time, it's me who is lost. So it's
Yeah.
a lot of things happening.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I also had encountered some of those type things in my dreams. I will have them. It's like I will see an event, and I will see the event happen before. I will dream of and the person's name and face will come up, and I will, there was a point in time in my life where I would greet someone and I would know everything about them. And uh, I had an opportunity to have a conversation with a few people that were thinking about suicide and stuff like that. So when one becomes open to that other side, things happen that is hard to explain. And there are some times when it's this feeling, and I remember when it would be like, it's coming and I can't do a thing about it, just like you. I don't want to be bothered with it anymore. But when it left, I was absolutely lost. And I remember coming back, I was like, God, I can't survive without that. And slowly it came back into my life. But I understand exactly what you're talking about. Here's this woman that is in the mix of all of this, and the anger, the family history, all of it, the not knowing who she is, the doubting of self, the insecurity of who she is as a woman, as an individual on the planet, but knows that she has an assignment. She feels this tug of, I have stuff to do. What a mix to be in as a young individual trying to move through life, as well as work is having all these issues and all these different things within you. I don't even know what to ask. How did you manage that space, because it's so much going on within the life and the mind and the thoughts of this individual, that how did you guide yourself on a daily basis?
I just went through the trials and tribulations of life happening and life happening, but still looking for those answers.
Yeah,
And I would say the change that happened first was the corporate, because I was an accountant. So the job that I had in the company that I was working for, which was my identity, and at the same time is the job that I didn't like. I
yeah.
didn't like it, and at the same time, I felt that I was not really that good of an accountant, and I didn't know if there's anything new or whatever that I can do. But the company was downsizing, and at that moment, everyone was scared. Everyone wanted to be there because it was a diamond company. Because Botswana is one
Yeah,
of the largest diamond producer, right? So no one wanted to lose their job. And somehow for me, I just felt, wow, this is an opportunity. I felt happy. I was excited
yeah,
to be living in the company. It's like, I'm gonna take this opportunity. I don't know, at that moment my mind was like, oh, I'm gonna go to UK, but I didn't know how I was gonna do it because I had two children. But that was
yeah,
like my bed. And while I was going through that, in the department that I was in, there was fraud as well that happened. And with fear and then the fraud that happens within the company, that's when I realized how fear can, like, people didn't want to tell the truth. It's kind of like, we don't want to
yeah,
upset the management, but it was in the department that I was leading, you
yeah,
know. So, and a lot of names were implicated in this. Like, this person was logging in with our passwords and yeah, stealing money and all that. But most of the sum was my name, and there was
yeah.
no, like, with all that happening, everyone knew who did it, and I was not
Hmm.
even angry with the person who did it because somehow we had conversations before, and he was just a nice guy and he had his own intentions, but somehow I didn't feel anger, like, why did you do that to me and all that. There was an kind of like an understanding that I didn't even know where I understood, which is some of the things that I actually had, like, when I just take you back when I was in my high school, like I was 18 or 17, somewhere there, while I was still angry with my family and feeling like one day I'm gonna go away and I don't know if I'm gonna have connection with this family. I also had a download, like, it's not about you. It's their
Yeah,
own things that they're dealing with. So I had that understanding as well. And here I
yeah,
was as well in this corporate job, and like just before I turned 30, you know, and all this thing is happening. And I have this understanding, but what I didn't understand was with my supervisors not wanting to take responsibility for the things that we overlooked for that to
yeah,
happen. Because wherever something is happening, we have to take accountability. So there was that happened, which also, I would say, cemented that you're not going to be here and you don't have to be here, despite the fear of what am I going to do next. So
yeah,
I would say it was kind of like the universe working with me. And the first time with the person who was there to talk to us about leaving and all that, this person asked me, are you sure accounting is for you? And I said, no. And he said, don't be afraid of changing careers. I've changed career many times. Like, this was his message to me. And that was, for me, it was kind of like I was given an anchor, even though I didn't know what is it that I want to do, but I was given an anchor. But it always, a lot of things happen. I lost my job in that company, but the good thing is I got my benefits, because that was my fear at that moment. So after I got my benefits, I'm like, okay, cool. Now I'm going to see what I'm going to do. My mom got sick, and that same year, I actually saw this accident happening. My younger brother had an accident, a near-death accident. I saw it before it happened. And that was like January of 2012. And I would say that's when a lot of things sort of like accelerated. And yeah, to God's grace, he was not supposed to be even walking, as the doctors are saying, but he's walking. And as we were celebrating that, 2012 ended, my mom passed on, and then started the case of my children. But I'm just gonna go back to 2012, before my mother passed on in February 2013. She was staying by my place, so we having conversation. Obviously, it's like back and forth most of the time, because it's just natural, the default of always like criticizing whatever that I do. And at that moment, I was not working. I was even feeling even more unworthy and conflicted. I've got 2 children and all that. I've got a mortgage to pay. There was just a lot. And she said something, and at that moment, I just said with all the emotions, I said, I know you hate me. And that caught her attention. And that was the first time that I ever witnessed the shock and the pain on her face. And she said, I don't hate you. I never hated you. But I was never taught how to affirm a child. What I know is if you tell a child she's great, they're going to be big-headed. My intention was not to harm you. So that was like the first conversation where we get to like go deep and face each other. And it was one of the last deep conversation we had. And I'm just grateful we had it, but I still wish we had more time to dive deep into this healing together. So she passed on the following year, and then afterwards followed the separation, the case with my children, where now my boyfriend now wanted to take the children, and because he had his company with his sister-in-law / girlfriend, that's also another twist, So with all this thing happening, my children were my kind of like my strength. Even when I was going to do this accounting job, finishing at 2 a.m. in the morning, I was doing it for my children, because I never knew how to put myself first. So now facing this judicial injustice, at first I was confident, like, that's an easy one. I was just by myself all this time, taking care of the kids by myself. So it's an easy one. And besides, we're not even married. But it was not as easy as I thought. Yeah, the judicial injustice happened. And here I was hiring. The first thing that I did was like hired lawyers, like the best lawyer. They had the best lawyer. I'm going to look for the next best. And I spent the money that I had, that benefits and all that in paying for lawyers. And I was broke at the end. But still, I lost the case, And in 2012, before my mom passed, I actually met my now ex-husband, who was here. So this case, I bet my boyfriend's intention was he just didn't want me to move here. So I was in that situation where I felt this conflicts and all that with the children, and I was in a bad space. And here's my boyfriend who was in Germany. So I had to make a choice at some point, and I'm the kind of person who, for me, it was kind of like I can't go anywhere without my children. So at the moment, with everything that was transpiring, I just sat with myself and said, a good start will be great, because I knew one thing that I knew at that moment is that if I stayed trying to be that loving mother that we always were groomed to be, and not care about how I feel and what's best for me, by now I would be dead. So I just knew that I'm gonna leave this planet sooner. So I just went ahead and moved here without my children, and still tried to fight for my children while I was away, which I would say that was the awakening, basically,
Yeah.
because in that process of me wanting to be with my children, one of the things that happened the other time I was coming from work, I just had this nudge. I wanted to write. And I'm like, okay, fine. And I took a shower first, and I went to sit in the dining room. By then my husband was out sailing for 2 weeks, and I was just by myself. I took a pen and put it and started writing. And I'm like, okay, this is gonna be a good post. I started writing, who are you without a job? Who are you without your parents? Who are you without like your mother, your father, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your wife, your husband? I started writing all of the things, everything that we know here that we relate or identify with. And
Yeah.
I'm just happy with the writing. And then at the end, who are you without your children? That moment I realized this message is for me. I put down the pen and I started crying, bawling out. And I just asked, but who am I? I don't know who I am, you know? So that was the moment where I had to start finding myself, as in, who
Yeah.
am I really without my children? Which I believe that was a defining moment to say, you are not here to just be a mother and feel like when you are not I mean, I'm still a mother. I don't, even if
Yeah.
I'm not with my children, right? But the thing is, when we talk about a mother, our role is defined by our children, by taking and nurturing our husband or boyfriend or whatever. It's not about us. We wear these roles, this masks, even, and we forget about who we are. So that was the deeper connection that started, and even the grief that I felt, because we are in the society, or there is this culture, and I think it's just worldwide, where if I say I've been separated with my children for 5 years, other people raise their eyebrows like,
Yeah.
something is wrong with her, she's not a woman enough. Or even some people will do it unconsciously, where someone is like, oh my God, how did you do it? I'll be dead by now. And then it's kind of like, oh, so it's kind of like I'm not that living enough for me not to be dead.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It just happened. It happens unconsciously. But when you're talking about the loss of, if I say I lost my mother, or a mother who lost a child, there is that compassion that comes first. Oh my God, like they understand the loss. And when
Yeah.
we're going through this, like what I was going through, that there was grief that I couldn't understand. And there was also still anger, even to God, to say, why should I have children if I can't mother them? That's the question that I kept asking myself. And I
Yeah.
had to deal with these emotions that I still didn't. I felt like maybe if my children were dead, it would be better. Like I would know how to deal with this pain. Because even
Hmm.
though often, even when you're talking about the loss of somebody, it's not like we deal with the pain. It's like sit with it. We often just like, it's the will of God, as if like
Yeah.
it doesn't hurt, or it hurt less because it's the will of God. So I was called to be with this emotion. I learned this. That's when I received this download from Mother Ocean, and what she just said, or even gave me the permission, was allow yourself to feel. Go deep in the darkness, where people normally don't go. When you look
Yeah.
at the ocean, everybody want to go to the beach, and they just enjoy just the atmosphere and how it feels like, oh, I want to go to the beach, wear the swimsuits and all that.
Mhm.
But no one likes the depth of the ocean. They don't
Yeah.
like it. So you need to go there and feel all your emotions, because emotions are the evidence of life. And even the anger that you are suppressing, you need to go there and feel all of it, because the ocean, everybody loves it, but everybody fears it. And when it's in that turmoil, we know when the ocean is angry and swelling and
Hmm.
turning and all that, nobody can stop it. And it's just nature. We get to accept how nature is, but we don't get to accept how we are. So I
Yeah.
went through that process of being with all this emotion, but still not with my children, until while I was processing with that, I received a call one of the days, because I was just like, I'm just glad that my children, because children move on fast. And I felt
Hmm.
betrayed at the same time, because
Yeah.
yeah, I am in Europe and I'm traveling. There's a lot of, and everywhere I go, first thing is kind of like, I wish my children were here. So I never gave myself permission to enjoy. And this is what my higher self kept asking me. Why can't you find joy where you are at? And it was there was that part of me that felt like I can't be happy if I'm not with my children. And we
Yeah.
do it to us a lot, where we deny ourselves something, even if it comes to the loss of something or somebody. It's kind of like, because I lost somebody, I can't be happy. So with me, it was those children. Like, I can't be happy without my children. And when I see them happy with all the pictures and all that, I felt betrayed.
Yeah.
Why would they be happy without
Yeah.
me? Yeah. So that happened. And then one day, with the gratitude that I had that at least my children are fine, one day this, I would say, fantasy or whatever ended when I received a call. And the father of my children said, maybe you need to sit down. I sat down and he said, Fiona had an accident and she may never walk again. What accident? And that was like a day before her birthday. She was 9 by then. Like, we separated when she was 5. Like, now it's 4 years. And he tells me she was attacked by 2 Rottweilers and they teared some muscles, veins from the leg and some parts. It was just a messy accident. And at that moment, because with this whole trying to defend myself, there was this strong woman mask that I wore, and I'm gonna prove them and all that, like the whole masculine grind and all that. And at that moment, I felt, I just said, I don't want to be strong anymore. I don't want to be strong. I just felt tired. And that was the moment where I allowed myself to feel, and I realized the strength is not in trying to hide the tears, trying to hide how we are feeling. It's in being with what is. But still, there was a part of me that still wanted to go ahead and find a way to have my children back. I went, and there was a lot of messy stuff, and I came back and I'm like, which lawyer can I hire for the 8th time? And I just said, you're not gonna win, because even when I was there, I went to the social worker who was my last hope. And at the end, she gave me back the file and said, if this was not a spiritual war, it's an easy case. But your case is a spiritual war. I wish I could help you, but I can't. And she gave me back the files. And when I got back to Germany, the message that I got was just that you're not gonna win. The odds are against you. Okay, then what am
How
I
did you
supposed to
take
do?
that? Yeah. How did
What
you
am I supposed
how
to
did you
do?
take that? Yeah.
Forgive. That's what I
Yeah.
was told. And I laughed. The laughter of a crazy woman? I laughed like with tears, but still laughing like, you flipping crazy. Forgive? Do you really know what is happening? Do you know what these people did? Forgive? You telling me to forgive? And the next question was, do you want your children? How? And I said, yeah, then you need to do the work. My response was, I don't know how to forgive. Like, that was my honest answer. And at times
Yeah.
we rush to say, I have forgiven. But I felt the best way to forgiveness is not knowing, because how do you know when you are hurting? So it was a matter of me honoring the person who was hurting, that woman who was hurting, who didn't know what life was about, what's next, if she's ever going to be with her children. So I was just honoring that. And I was just told, well, guide you. Your assignment is show up in a meditation, sit, and be. And I did exactly that. And the next question was, how would I know then if I have forgiven? Because I don't know what forgiveness is. How would I know if I've forgiven?
Yeah.
That heart will open and you'll have your children back. Okay. It took some months, and I was not even attached to the outcome, but I was kind of like being, but before I knew it, one distinct memory was when I was kneeling down in my altar. And I was just praying for this guy's ancestors and family to guide him, because he was in a bad space. And I said, my children need that father. So guide him, bring the light so that he can choose to live and be here, because I can't imagine my children without that father. And I was like, who the heck is this woman? I didn't even know myself. How did I
Yeah.
move from I want you dead? Because when we say
Yeah.
I'll kill for my children, that's true. When something happens, that's the first thing, like that that comes through. I'm gonna kill you when it comes to my children. And that's how I felt from the beginning. And here I am praying for this man. Here I am sending money to him and the children because they needed that, you know. So with that happening and a lot of things happening in his life, eventually, because I was actually expecting my third child here in my marriage, I had my daughter, and then they came to visit for the first time after that, like it was after 4 years, they came to visit for the first time. And then the following, like after 5 months or so, my daughter relocated. And by the end of 2018, my son relocated as well without a mediator, with a lawyer or anything, you know.
Yeah.
So that's when I realized, actually, along the way of that, I was just told it's time. I went through some spiritual journeys where I was just told it's time. You can't come here and just sit like that with such a gift. You know, I went even to the moment where I was born and I was just crying at the same time, like, I don't want to be here. You know, I don't want to be born, like, afraid of the pain that is here in the world. And it's kind of like things started making sense. I was more connecting with me and what I'm here for, and starting to trust and fully come back to myself, and also perceive things differently, even from my parents, what she went through. And it's quite interesting because by then she was late, and there's some things that I got to know. And the funny thing, I've got a middle name, just starting with that, with who are you without, right? And the other time I'm about to go to bed, and I was asked, so do you want to know who you are? Like, this voice is just coming through. I'm like, yeah, I want to know who I am. And then I'm there trying to sleep, and I'm just going back into this journey. But first thing, I was trying to pronounce my name. Like, it just happens automatically. I'm trying to pronounce my names. But when I come to the second name, and this name, it was not in my birth certificate. I put it later after my parents passed on. But I was called because I was named after my father's sister, you know. But that's when, like, everything unfolded, knowing even they didn't want me to take this name. You know, in Africa, we have this thing, I think even in other countries, where like there is junior and all that, of naming someone after, so there is that. I was named after my father's sister. And I realized that's when I like kind of like opened the whole ancestral thing and go to see things differently, that is even beyond the family that I'm in. It's bigger than that.
Yeah, what a story. I hope you guys that have been listening. As I said, I hope you have transitioned and become a hearer, and you are listening to and hearing what she's saying. What a testimony, man. I mean, the question within the darkness, the purpose of the darkness, I always tell people, that comes into our life. A life without darkness is a sad life. The purpose of the darkness is to get you acquainted with the creator that is in you. I grew up in the church, and people, when you say creation, they think of someplace just beautiful and whatever. But the process of creation is darkness first. And you have to have some darkness in order to create. But your creation is specific in what you want and what you're asking. I grew up in church, as I said, and in Genesis, I remember reading, says, God let there be light, because he needed light, because it was dark. So he's very specific in what he wanted, and he began to announce what he wanted. And it's amazing when one announced what they want, how things began to come into existence, if you will. You began to ask the questions, who are you? What a powerful question. Who are you without your mother, your grandmother, the cat, the dog, the goldfish? Who are you? And as you begin to delve into those things, darkness begins to spin even more. Why? Because you're in the midst of creating. And because you're in the midst of creating, things are going to happen to discourage you from your creation. That's how the process always happens. But as you focus on your creation and begin to dig and find out who you are, it takes time. Creation took time. It says that it took God 7 days. But we look at the Psalms, it says a day is like 1,000 years in human time and God time. So 1,000 years, guys, in our time, that it took for this universe to be created. So it took some time. So your life and your creating is going to take some time. It doesn't manifest all the way You talked about how there are many different ways to fight a battle, not always with the lawyers and so forth. Many times on your knees in prayer, many times in your quiet time. Forgiveness, one of the most powerful forces known to mankind. Because when you begin to forgive, it changes you, because that's where all the power is. The power is in you. And as it begins to change you, your prayer begins to change. Everything begins to change. And your situation is going to begin to change. So, all of these things she was talking about, meditating, writing, all of these things, these are tools to assist you and I to become better human spirits. And so I want to encourage you guys and invite you to come and walk this walk. I have someone that has been through some stuff, man. And as she's talking, and I'm just engrossed in her story, as she is walking through and learning about her. She now talks about her children coming into play, as she learned to forgive and began to pray and began to become one that exercises her belief, her new belief system as she's moving through life. This is what it's all about, guys. And all of you that are in pain, are lost, all of that, I have someone that is here, and we're going to provide her stuff so you have access to her, so that you guys can grow and learn who and from her and so forth. So here she is with this, all the things that she has gone through and been going through in her life. And I want to encourage you guys, man, we got ourselves someone that is absolutely awesome for all of you that are here on this planet, that are going through some pain. It's okay. As I mentioned, creation, there's darkness first. That's the process of creation. But be mindful of what you want and begin to speak to that darkness, and you'd see how light manifests, how all the things that you need will come to pass, and the people will come into your life that will make it manifest. That's the power of creation. So here you are. The kids began to migrate back, families coming back, and you're still learning about who you are. And as you are in this mix now, and you're now beginning to enjoy the reunion of the family, what did it do to you as an individual? Because you mentioned that all the anger and all these different things, you had learning how to deal with it, now learning how to tame that beast, if you will. And as you're putting all these teams and finding out who you are, first, let me ask you this. This woman that was not, didn't know who she was, and the fact that she was very insecure and all of those type things, how was she right there when the kids started to come back? You started to treat her, you forgive, your exercising forgiveness, all of that. What started to happen to her?
Because that was kind of like a journey from back home, and now I came here in a different country, spoken different language and all that. And I would say along the process of what was happening with my amazing ex-husband, who was great, especially in those 5 years that we're together. And what I would say, like what is coming through is kind of like the change that happened with me being here alone with him at first. Like we're all both in agreement of the children coming here, but the whole process happening at the end, that's kind of like we're not basically. He just felt like, you know what, maybe the children are just better there. We'll just support them with our father there. And I'm a mother, so as he changed and said, they were young, like the girl was 5, the boy was 7. So now they're a bit grown, and I don't think it's the right decision and all that. And I was still that same mother, and I said, after 5 years, and I don't want to miss any more years. Whatever chance that I have to be with my children, I'd love to be with them. And also, we were also on different paths in terms of spirituality. He doesn't believe in God, and for me, everything was the grace of God, all that was happening. And it's kind of like we grew apart with that. But the first thing I can appreciate, the girl who wanted her father. And then I met this man who played that role for that 5 years when I was totally, I felt nothing. I felt powerless and all that. He was there, but at the same time, I attracted my version of my own father because he also had his own struggle with alcohol. And that was the
Yeah.
love that I knew. So I attracted that. So I was with this amazing partner. And now comes the transition because now we have a child and the other two children are coming through. And he felt like this is too much, especially when you're talking about someone who's dealing with alcohol issues and all that. Even when I go back to my own father, my father had a lot of anger as well. So it's unprocessed emotions that build up,
Yeah.
and some people numb them with drugs, some people numb them
Yeah.
with alcohol. And I'd say it's the same for my ex-husband, and also like it's something that is in his lineage too, right?
Mhm.
So there was all that was happening, and now from being a child who was like just enjoying being there and not having her own, I was not actually doing my thing. There were things that were calling me, like doing yoga, doing that, but there was this whole thing of let's do things together, we are married. I basically lost my individuality as well because it
Yeah.
was a foreign country. I kind of like became just something confirming and doing whatever that I was what he was doing. And now when I gave birth to a child and now my children are coming, it's kind of like a new initiation into motherhood again, where now I'm
Yeah.
rising up again and I'm saying I've tolerated all these things for many years, but now I get to be there for my children because I don't want them to be exposed to what I was exposed to when I was young.
Yeah.
And even there's just a lot that transpired even between all that, because what was happening, I was married. Whenever there was something, whether it's with the children, even the time when my daughter was bitten, my husband by then, often it happened, it's quite interesting. It happened that things happen at the moment when he had his own 2-3 weeks break with the whole alcohol thing. And then I found myself going back home by myself alone. So I was
Yeah.
still doing this, still unsupported in the times when I needed help the most, you know.
Yeah.
And then comes the time when I was giving birth to even to our child here. I found myself alone a day after I gave birth at the hospital in a foreign country. I don't have a sister, I don't have a friend, I don't have anything. And then my husband didn't come to the hospital. Rejection, abandonment hit me
Yeah.
again. Yeah, and that was not the first time. It happened again in Botswana, where my boyfriend by then also didn't come to the hospital, and my mother was new in the capital city. She needed someone who can drive her to where I was. So this is like a repetition of things. If we don't deal with them, I feel like the universe has a way of coming through with a bowl and
Mhm.
saying, do you want this again? Have you learned how to deal with this? You know, and we've got
Yeah.
a choice at every moment. Who are we being? Have we learned? Have we grown? So I found myself again in the hospital, and that was kind of like also a wake-up call to say, this was like my worst fear. And the worst part of it is that even at that moment, I gave birth through cesarean. It was not natural birth like the previous time. And the child
Yeah.
also had some issues. So she was admitted somewhere else. So it was kind of like another wound that was coming
Yeah.
through and hitting me exactly at the womb, which is like that creation, because when we are there, it's still that darkness where creation starts. So this is like was my most wounded place, my wound. This is why I talk about the wound, the sexual energy and all that. So I experienced that. By the first time when the children visited, I was raw from
Mhm.
feeling rejected or abandoned. And then I come home. When I come home, because of all that was happening, my husband didn't have the capacity to receive that or even to process that. The only thing was alcohol. I still remember after I was discharged from the hospital, we were staying in fifth floor. And I come home, I have to, with the after a season and all that, and we have to go check on the child, and he's giving me the keys that take and drive. I'm like, what the
Mhm.
heck? I just gave
Wow.
birth, I had cesarean, and I'm still navigating the whole thing, and you're giving me the car keys to drive. Are you serious right now? So when they
Wow.
came, there was that anger still that was like actually like a whole lot of it now coming through as well in that first visit. But I just knew by then that this marriage is not gonna work. He, like he said in his words, I want the girl that I met. The girl that she met is someone who was broken, wounded, and felt lost. And now I'm here again, being initiated, I would say, into my power. Like, you are a mother, you are still a mother, and there's still work that need to come through you, that you need to give birth to. So their transition from them moving and staying with us, father and the sister-in-law, and then breaking up and moving back to the parents' house, and now they're coming back to me, and then they're coming into this divorce again. It was a lot, and that's exactly what I didn't want for my children, because I went through the whole back and forth fights with my parents and all that. So it was another journey that was beginning, but at the same time, I would say it was a chapter that I had here that was ending, and I was starting another chapter now with as a single mother and my three children. That's that's another journey on its own. But the difference with that, after processing all the emotions that I had or what I avoided and tiptoed around for the 5 years that we were married, in one meditation, what was asked basically, because I was still in my enlightenment journey, but there was still a part of, I'm better than you. There was still a part of, I'm in my spiritual journey, I'm enlightened. You are kind of like just an alcoholic, you don't understand. There was a bit of that, and we have a lot of that even in spirituality, kind of like, this is better than that, instead of accepting each other's journey where we are. Even if someone is a drug addict, can we see them as powerful beings, as loving beings where they are? So I had that I'm better than you, my path and all that, until I was sitting in a meditation. The question that I was just asked was, what part of you has a problem with his drinking? Like, but drinking is wrong, especially the way he's doing it. So what are you talking about? It's kind of like, I'm just wondering. So I sat there and I just had this download.
Yeah.
I'm not judging him. It's my unresolved emotions with my father. And even a part of me that was holding and hoping that he'll change, it is still me wanting to rescue my father. It's still me who's still angry with the alcohol that somehow took my father away from me. So I'm dealing with someone who is a representation of that, but he is not the problem, And at that moment, I had this, I would say, compassion again of receiving this gift of saying, are you willing to connect deeper with your inner child and become the mother and the father for your inner child? Are you willing to receive the love and embrace the 5 years that you spent together and love this man for who he is? And on the other hand, it's also because at first when I received all this, my interpretation was like, oh, I have to be nice and maybe things will work out. No, that was not the message. The message was, I have a journey, I have a path that is mine. Just the same thing. I didn't mention this, but at some point while I was angry with the whole separation with my children, one question that was, or message that came through was, the problem is you think these children belong to you. That's what is making you so angry. You feel like you own them. They have to be with you, but they belong to God. They are on their mission. And you are also on your mission. That was the whole thing of, who are you? As in, like, are you willing to open up to what you are here to give birth to? And accept that these children, they also have their own lessons to learn, which is something that you mentioned at the beginning. So even in that marriage, I was just called to honor that I have my own calling, I have my own path, and I get to respect this man's path. And it's not for me to decide who he gets to be and when. He will decide if at all he's meant to get over the alcoholic and all that in this lifetime. It will happen. If not, then it's his journey. I get to respect that. So at that moment, I started feeling the love, the pain, because what we do, we program ourselves that when something is ending, I have to find a way to stop loving. At times we can be in a relationship that is toxic, or a marriage that is toxic. And then we say, but I love him. I still love him, and we feel like we have to wait until there is no love, which is a lie, because we are love. There's no time when the love is not there. And what a beautiful time to even maybe separate, or when our purpose of coming together, when that is done, whatever that we meant to learn is done, and then we part still in love, embracing that there are great moments that we had, there are great lessons that we had with each other. So I went through the divorce still, like I say, my human was afraid, but my soul was dancing while I was going through that divorce.
Yeah.
And it was one of the difficult ones, because even when I say to my ex-husband that I love you, he just said, you need to go try psychiatric ward, especially with the whole spirituality paranormal thing. For him, it's
Yeah.
kind of like, you're a mental case, so that's I can just sum it up like that was like exploring another journey and exploring a different way of love, to say I can love you, but we may not have to be together. We still,
Yeah.
even in families, there may be
Yeah.
some things that are happening within our family, and what a beautiful thing to also embrace that. Yes, we are family, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that we need to get along. I get to honor your path, and you get to honor my path. I still get to love you where you are. I'll just give you an example shortly. When I look at my path, my journey, who I am, what I'm doing with all this healing, and with the religious background, some of my siblings, they just feel like this is unholy. They
Yeah.
have that judgment of, oh, I don't like what she's doing, or and all name calling and all that. And I respect where they're at, and it doesn't reduce the love that I have for them, because I get to connect with me, and realize that I get to become my own validator, if that is a word.
Yeah.
I have to give myself the
Yeah.
validation, the appreciation, the love that I need, and what is coming through is also respect.
Yeah.
Because I had a lot of, like, kind of like I'm always in relationship with men who do not respect me. That's how I viewed the whole dynamics that I was in. But the question came when, do you respect yourself? How?
Yeah.
And when I'm talking about respect, it's kind of like, do you respect your truth? Do you respect your journey, your potential? Because at times we even get into relationship with people like, oh, this person has potential. We know what we know. It's like laid out in front of us. But then we tell ourselves a story. This person has potential. What if it's your own potential that you are projecting? Which was the
Yeah.
case. I'm the one who knew there's something that I'm meant to do. There was that calling, that drive. But I always projected it in other people, and I got even that at times the whole kind of like, why are they wasting so much gifts that they have, because this guy is gifted, he's got skills, and when he comes to his whole IT thing, he's a genius. And it's kind of like,
Yeah.
it's a waste, and that was like me not digging deep to find out what is my thing, what is my unique genius that I'm here to give birth to. Because the moment I connected and embodied that, the whole thing fell off. I didn't expect anything from him. I just loved him as he was, and respected the journey that he was in, and even through the trials and tribulations that we went through. Because here in Germany as well, I get to explore another separation with my daughter that also
Yeah.
transpired, and that's like another level of betrayal, where someone who held space with me for many years, and knew what I was dealing with, and knew how I felt, and then he turned around and used the same information of what was happening now against me, here in a foreign country, where there is also a lot of things, when you talk about racism and all that are playing along, so I get to go through that, which at first it hit me off, and I went through to the darkness, like, where it's kind of like I couldn't believe it, and this is one of the things, kind of like, this is not happening. He can't be doing this to me. And then I was kind of like, I checked out for some time, where I was still trying to make sense of what is happening, to deal with this darkness, this wound. And I was taken out from this by remembering when I asked my daughter when I was pregnant with her, why did you choose me? And she said, I want you to help me with self-esteem and confidence. And by
Yeah.
then, things were okay. I didn't know that we are going to be where we are. And I knew again that, okay, the same thing that I knew that I need to leave so that I can be there for my children when the time comes, when they need me, is the same
Yeah.
thing that I need to do to be there for my daughter when the time comes, when she needs me. So it's not about what is happening to us. It's about who are we being, a new way of being. And I remember
Yeah.
you also saying this in the beginning, that no one escapes trauma, no matter how small it is. And I always, like, one of the things that I work with when it comes to my clients, there are 4 wounds that I normally look at, which is betrayal, abuse, abandonment, and rejection, which I feel none of us escape this, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's at work, whether it's with a friend, we experience this one or the other. They cause that feeling, not feeling safe in our body. And as we're saying this, I also want to add, like you said, you always nudge your listeners, your community to listen. And I would like to take them further again to say, instead of just listening and hearing, be with the body and see what is registering in the body. Because at times, some things are unconscious, but the body will tell you a story where at times you feel pain, you feel certain sensation as you are listening. And that's the way of being, to receive what is here. Because at times when you look at words just by themselves, because of what words mean, we can miss what is unique for us. So even if a word is positive, it can be positive, but it means totally something different for us. But when you're present to be aware of what the body is sharing, you get to receive the message that is here, And with that, I'm just going to add a little bit of a story where I always wanted to be accepted by my mother. And there was a time when I did something and I started receiving messages actually on Facebook, people commenting, "Oh, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you." Like, it's a beautiful thing for people to be proud of you. But instead of receiving this as like, "Oh, people are proud of you, I should feel good," something was happening within my body that I didn't understand. Like, there was that pushback. I don't understand what this means. So I took some time from responding just from the mind, and I sat back with myself and I realized that I can't receive from other people, because the only person that I wanted that from was my mother. So I still had to go back and find that to say, can I give myself that? Because when I'm looking for someone to validate me or approve of me, that's why I'm looking for people to be proud of me, and that was my mother, and she's late, she's not here. So I had to become that. Wow. That was a lot that I said, but it was just
no, it's a powerful story. And again, for those that are listening to our conversation, I'm going to provide everything for you guys to get to her so that she can assist you. And you've heard her story and her journey as to the degrees of loss, rejection, abandonment, all of these things that many of us go through. We have someone that has been through, familiar with it, and has learned how to get on the other side. And so I want you guys to get in her space, truly learn of her, and so that you can become who you are meant to be while we're here on this earth. So I want to thank her for coming to Threads of Enlightenment and really opening and giving of herself in such a deep and honorable fashion to us. And I want to say thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.